Okay, so I wanted to show you guys how to make this case for the Zig Zag book, and it's pretty similar to how we did the case for the pamphlet book, except for it has a hard spine. So what I've got here are two pieces of board, one for the cover, front cover and back cover, and those are cut and sized exactly to a section, height and width, and then one piece of board that's cut to the same height and width as my jig, and that's also the height of a section. So the first thing you want to do, I also cut this piece of book cloth, which you could see was just wide enough to accommodate all my pieces, and then I'll trim it to size with my 5/8 jig when I'm ready to glue. The other thing I constructed before I start gluing is a joint space jig. So you need a little bit of cloth in between the spine board and the cover board so that the cover can be flexible, and that measurement is actually kind of particular, so it needs to be at least a board thickness. And then I added 3 pieces of covering material front and back to my jig, and the reason that I did that is because you're gonna have like double thickness of book cloth inside the gutter here, and then you're also adding thickness when you put this decorative piece here. And so just gluing, it's kind of hard to see, but what I did was glue 3 pieces of book cloth on each side of my jig just to give me a little bit of extra movement and good flexibility in my joint. So you want to take your cover boards and you want to cover them completely with glue, and I didn't have methyl cellulose here, but remember that when we were gluing things to be covered, we were using a mix of half methyl cellulose and half PVA. So what I did was just take the PVA that I did have and water it down like just a little bit, like literally just a few drops of water, just to thin it out so I could spread it on faster. So cover your whole board from the center out, and you want to just place that down. And then you can use a straight edge along the long side, and that's just going to ensure that when we go to glue the other 2 pieces that we're keeping them nice and square. So the next thing you want to glue is your spine, and it's the same thing. You just want to cover the whole thing with glue from the center out, and then that guy you're going to put down right next to the other board. And this is where you need your jig. So you put your joint space jig in there, and then you lay your spine up against it. And I'm not squishing it super tight. I'm literally just bumping it up against the jig and the straight edge so that I have a nice gap here and that my pieces are all nice and square across the top. And then you're ready to glue your second cover board. And make sure you cover the whole thing with glue, center out, so that you're not getting glue on the other side of the board. And it helps if you pick depending on how big your board is, it helps if you pick a brush that's pretty good size. Like mine's about 1 inch when it's fanned out, and that just helps you, cover it faster. Because PVA glue does dry pretty quickly, and if you're having to use straight like I am, you need to be able to work fast. So then I'm going to put my jig in on the other side of the cover there, bump it up, bump my second cover board up against the jig and up along the straight edge, and then remove the jig. And then what you want to do is just flip this over and make sure that it's glued on all the edges. And then I'm going to press that under weights for a little bit while, at least an hour, until it's totally dry.